the Jack Mullis question on was getting some details on the work you did on Bitcoin in the early days. And there's a reason I want to do it, because I know some of the skeptics will say, well, what does David know about Bitcoin? And I want to make sure that that history is given in context with the question I asked before.
Yeah, I found Bitcoin in mid 2011. I was following what was going on, the development, and I just fell in love. I just thought this was the coolest, most interesting thing ever. And at the time, mining was just starting to reach the point where there was some sort of pooling of mining, where it just reached the point where your odds of mining a block solo were low enough that it made sense to create sort of these mining pools to aggregate. And they were running into a lot of problems because the Bitcoin software just wasn't designed with that use case in mind. It just didn't scale to the number of requests that miners were sending for work. And so I saw someone offered like a 20 Bitcoin reward if someone could solve particular problems with the software. And someone added 10 Bitcoins and someone added 15, and it reached something like 120 Bitcoin. Bitcoin was like $8 at the time. Like, well, okay, that's real money. And so I figured I needed something to do to understand the code. If I just were looking at the code just randomly, that wouldn't be as efficient as having a real problem in mind. And so I decided to fix some of the early issues, and you can see my commits, in the history. And I got those Bitcoin rewards, and they later made the down payment on my first house in Oakland, which was kind of cool. So, I mean, I've worked on optimizing the performance of the Bitcoin software. And then obviously, soon after that, I did, Arthur Brito and I probably wrote most of the XRP ledger software in late 2011, early 2012.
That's amazing, man. You may have maybe a book that you can write about stories back in the day in conjunction with building the XRP ledger.
Yeah, that was just the craziest year of my life. Just so productive. A lot of people don't know, Arthur and I would commit code before we synced up several times a day, and we would each commit our code right before the sync up so that I could see what he was working on, he could see what I was working on. And you can actually see that that's all public now. When normally what people will do when they make a project like that public is they'll sort of wipe the history out to go back to like a clean starting point, because it's kind of confusing and there's all these false starts and everything. We left all that in there. And so anyone who wants to can go and see, like, you want to know, like, when did we settle on 100 billion units of XRP? You can go and look and then see where that commit was done. And it was all the code that we were using as we were doing it. So you can go back in time and see the sort of the evolution of the code in the project, and you can follow it at that level. You can see how much work I did each day and what times of day I was working and everything because of those frequent commits. And I think I'm kind of glad we did that. Obviously, there's some embarrassing mistakes still in there and some comments